Clicking. Noises. Time to make noises at the beginning of the fucking stream. I think it's
Hmm.
probably working fine. Say some words at me.
Hello.
Words at me.
Hello.
Cool.
How's my level?
Your level
Is it
is
okay?
fine. Everything should be good. All right.
Nice.
For those of you who have been following for a while, you know that I've had some like strong opinions on certain subjects, and we'll be tackling some of those things. It'll be a conversation. Like there was, I guess, some misunderstanding about the thing. I don't want this to be like a super hostile debate kind of thing. I kind of think a debate needs a moderator, it needs timing, it needs rules, all that shit. Like,
Yeah.
I I still kind of want to remain, logical and civil, but I want this to be more of a discussion kind of thing. See where we don't see eye to eye and where we do. Um, with all that being said, my guest today is Libertarian or Aaron Kinney. Kinney? Huh? Which one?
Kinney.
Kinney, cool. Yeah, I thought I got that right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and supporter of mine on Patreon, y'all can feel free to, as the description says, throw money at me if you like throwing money down large pits. Um, and with that being said, we're talking today about several issues, just generally,
Hmm.
that are pertinent to the AnCap space. Not the least of which is let's start actually here. Let's start real strong, because this has come up in multiple discussion spaces lately, and it's slightly fresher. Let's start with AI. Give me your best ANCAP case for AI, and I'll throw
Oh
some,
man.
because we mostly agree.
Yeah.
Like we agree on a lot of stuff, but like AI,
Hmm.
AI is one area I think we can have some interesting talk.
Yeah. I am very I'm very pro AI, and I don't so much think that the whole, AI is going to betray us and kill us thing is like a really serious concern, at least not right now. I also think AI has a lot of value in terms of like um, producing things like art, music, software code, writing for you, that kind of thing. But I don't know, man. I'm kind of confused about it because I've seen like horseshoe theory with AI. I've seen people on the left and the right both express a lot of skepticism and hostility to AI. I look at it like one of those, the invention of the horseless carriage, the invention of the typesetting, you know what I mean, where they started. I forget the name of the machine when they were able to finally mass print books. That's what I kind of feel like AI is right now. Um, I see way more upside than downside to embracing the technology, basically.
Well, so all right, let me just start with this. I
Hmm.
don't see it as similar to the printing press. I
Hmm.
think that's what you're probably referencing. I don't see it
Yeah,
as I don't see it as similar to the printing press, because what the printing press does is it makes it easy for somebody to directly copy, uh, like words or like some image or whatever, and it allows that to be mass distributed. And it was the same thing that was mass distributed over and over, and it allows that thing to be mass distributed. It doesn't alter. It's like the intended effect is to commit something to print and then distribute
yeah,
that print. So for me, for
yeah.
my money, I don't think it's the same thing remotely in tool terms. Like one is
Mhm.
neutral and one only copies, and the other scrapes a bunch of people's stuff so that
Yeah,
it can like create the environment where those people can no longer make copies because they can't even afford it. It takes the
yeah.
actual creatives and creativity away from it in order to make objectively inferior products. Um, and go ahead, go ahead.
Well, okay, I get you there. I understand that difference. I do think there are some similarities between the analogy. Obviously, the analogy ain't perfect, but one
Right,
of the
right, right.
main things I was actually getting at is like I feel like AI can save a lot of labor in the same way that the gas powered automobile saved a lot of labor from like taking care of horses or having to do like a hand drawn wagon. As far as objectively inferior, right now, AI, I agree that the stuff that AI puts out is generally inferior to what the humans are doing, right? Especially when it comes like there's a lot of problems with AI repeating or producing misinformation or doing artwork that totally sucks, like the Seven Fingers and all that crap. But I don't think it would necessarily be inferior forever. Like the first airplane was inferior to the birds in terms of how far a bird could fly, but now the airplanes fly farther than the birds. Like I think the AI can get to where it needs to be in terms of quality eventually, probably.
Well, that's actually it's a good sort of transition into the other end of my beef with AI, because like,
Yeah.
you know, the reason planes got so much better than birds at flying, I mean, gliding with propulsion, because honestly, flying and flapping of wings is a much different mechanical process than it is to simply like push yourself forward and use the sort of same physics of like bird flight to glide
Yeah.
with the propulsion behind the gliding. But like physics, I'm a fucking nerd, like everybody knows that. um but like the reason the plane got so much better, so much faster, is
Yeah.
because the military-industrial complex kicked in, and the
Mm.
government contracted a bunch of airplane companies to
Yeah.
mass-produce airplanes to the point where, you know,
Yep.
like, and this is the same thing with the automobile, right?
Mhm.
And like, you know, horse-drawn carriage analogy, it like the
Yeah.
automobile was heavily infiltrated by the military-industrial complex early on, so
Yeah.
much so that the automobile industry was directly tied to Hitler and also the U.S. Even if it was an American manufacturer like Ford, who hated the Jews anyway. So it's like, yeah, here's a
Yeah.
nice fucking symbiotic process. We both hate the Jews. We'll just do this thing and make cars for Hitler. Um,
Yeah.
so like the general fucking like thing that I want to convey here is AI is the same kind of vibe, because
Mm.
AI is being used by the military industrial complex to remove yet another human element from their warfare. They're using it
Mm.
to create what they call hyper enabled officers. This is from official SOCOM documents and shit. And
Really?
yeah,
Huh.
and like one of the ways that they're doing that, so they want AI to be able to like completely constantly observe battlefield conditions and like create like automated weapon systems and all this other shit.
Mm.
They also
Uh,
yeah, and they also want like the same AI system to sort of like supplant the need for like boots on the ground by engaging in the
mm.
soft power of propaganda. So like the AI that they're using, they want it to do digital disinformation campaigns.
Mm.
They call it that in their own documents, and they want to use AI to passively monitor sentiment using Internet of Things devices. So basically, AI
Oh.
is like wiretapping people, collecting their thoughts,
Mm.
collating that information, telling the government what lies they would most likely believe, and then making those lies so that they can be deployed and
Huh.
battlefield sentiment can change. People can like
Mm.
help turn in their neighbors and shit because they think those people are traitors or whatever. Um, you know,
Yeah. AI mixed with Stasi level of police state is obviously a bad sounding idea. I think I once read not too long ago that they're talking about, the ethics of having like AI or autonomous robots make decisions on whether or not to kill people with their, robot mounted cannon on the top of their head or whatever, like those
shotguns
dog
typically.
robots, like let the software decide whether or not to shoot at someone. I think that would be a huge ethical problem. My personal experience with AI was like Mid-Journey and
Right.
ChatGPT, and those were fun to play with. But obviously, the MIC getting a hold of it really changes the game in terms of in terms of how dangerous the AI is. But I would say like that's more of a criticism of the MIC itself rather than the technology of AI in a sense, right?
Well, so for me, for my money, I look at like cumulative effects, and I also look at like sort of interlaced industries. My mother was a medical transcriptionist, and that means, for anybody out there who doesn't know, you might know, but like basically she would get doctor's reports that would like talk into a fucking voice recorder, and she had to learn a variety of accents. She had to learn a variety of drunkenness levels. She had to learn a variety of shit in order to
Oh.
be like, oh yeah, this doctor means this, not this, because he made a mistake, but this is clearly what the doctor meant, and intuitive shit like, or reading doctor handwriting, like that they'll make their own mistakes twice because like they're doctors. Anyway, point is that like she eventually, like, her industry started to eat itself because the company that was responsible for hiring her, for paying her, eventually said, you're going to train speech recognition. That's what we're going to pay you for now. And like she would get paid less for normal transcription jobs, and like that became the reason that she would eventually like get paid less and less and less and less to program an increasingly like powerful speech recognition model. And eventually that replaced her. She quit. So
Yeah.
I watched this happen, and based on that, when you program something like Midjourney, and I'll shut the fuck because like I'm not here to just hear me yet, but like, like when you program something like Midjourney, it makes the job of object recognition in the battlefield easier for the military-industrial complex because they get better at making the images, and they can also get better at seeing the images in real time. That's like what Ukrainian farms were doing. They were like using the Ring doorbell cameras and like programming them for Amazon. Their farms were in Ukraine, the data farms. And so like basically you make it easier over time by programming this shit. And then eventually the military and intelligence industrial complex has everything they need. And if they can also do that, then when they need to create the fake news, it'll be a lot easier to do it because people have been programming it slowly and just sending drips and drabs of feedback back to people like Midjourney or people like, I think Oracle? I can't remember. OpenAI, all this like Sora AI video shit. Like the more realistic the AI companies can make things, the worse it is for us. So it's like it's an actively antagonistic thing to truth and to freedom as far as I'm concerned. You can respond to any of that. Take as long as you need.
Man, I mean, well, on one end, I don't disagree with you really on the way you describe the effects of AI and how it can be utilized or misused by certain entities. But I feel like there's a difference between criticizing the shooter and criticizing the gun, right? I feel like the military-industrial complex, or the state in this case, is the real danger more so than the AI. The story about your mom's job getting replaced by AI or getting replaced by speech recognition, of course, is one of those stories that's kind of sad. But it's like that buggy whip story from whatever that one movie, and I think it's Danny DeVito who's like making the story about the buggy whip company,
right.
And they made the best buggy whip ever, but the automobile made the jobs obsolete, and all the buggy whip people got laid off, even though they were making the best buggy whip that ever existed. It reminds me also, like, if we want to talk about dangerous things that can hurt people, one of the things I like to talk about, one of the analogies I would like to use is guns, especially 3D printed guns. And some people are like, well, 3D printed guns is too easy. Anyone can print a gun in their living room. And that's true. Maybe that is too easy. But like the cat's kind of already out of the bag. The files are already on the internet. It's impossible to scrub that. It's impossible to get something off the internet. It's impossible to stop people from building their own 3D printers now that the Pandora's box has been opened. Like confiscating everyone's gun in America, 350 million guns, they'll never pull that off. So I think the more vulnerable, I think the easier target, rather than like trying to target AI also from a practical standpoint, I think it's going to be easier, as ridiculous as this may sound, I think it's easier to defeat the military industrial complex itself by going for like a shrunken, withered, or even eliminated state than it would be to actually eliminate all the AI software or all the AI technology that has been discovered and developed, right? That would be my take.
So, to start with, we got one comment in chat. Well, we got multiple. Hello, Cold Highway. Hello, Jester. And Jester's got some comments in AI. I almost flipped you off. That was not an intent, Jester. That was just sort of like I was thinking 3 comments, and I sort of just jumped to 3 in my mind, and like, yeah, fucking that. Just in case that was a concern, Jester's an artist, and she literally drew my persona. So, yeah, fucking hashtag furry over here. And Jester says, I hate generative AI because it literally steals my art to make more work. I've actually lost a lot of business because of AI art. And Cold Highway says AI is really fucking over a lot of art. It's disgusting. And he's Cold Highway is an AnCap, Jester is not. But like the general the vibe that I want to give off, right? I don't think it's the same as guns, because guns have one single purpose, and like personally, I am like, as everybody here knows, like who's watched this for any length of time, I'm an anarchist, extremist, conspiracy theorist asshole, and I oppose all gun control. I don't think gun control even helps. I think gun control itself is like an evil that should not be like tolerated. So for me, for my money, when I'm trying to when I'm thinking of an analogy, it has to be 1-to-1. It has to be on some level the same thing. I think guns are too neutral to be directly comparable to AI, because a gun does not rely on, for instance, the theft of its materials to shoot. It doesn't rely on the replacement of a human to fire a bullet. Although, depending on how it's used, it could definitely replace a few humans. But that's a nice little joke for those. I went to the range the other day and started to get really good groupings at max range. It was fun.
Cool.
Yeah, fucking. So for me, when I'm trying to think of and Kareem, I see you in the comments. We can do maybe something after this, but this is a one-on-one discussion. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind doing something maybe after this. It'll be like an hour-long discussion. This will. So for me, AI itself is it's sort of malevolent in what it does, in how it does it, and you want to talk about like fighting the military-industrial complex. It makes it so much easier for them to do what they do when the actual like sweat is removed from the situation, when you don't have to put your skin in the game and get greasy, right? That's the reason drone operation is such a huge thing at this point. It's the reason nukes were a thing, because if you just point a nuke at somebody and just blow them up, it's like they can't do shit. If you point a drone at somebody and then blow them up, and then blow up the first responders and third responders with double and triple tap, and then jail somebody indefinitely until they're tortured because like she brought something up regarding that. It's like, when it comes down to it, the military-industrial complex loves replacing humans. It loves replacing humans with things that can't think, or that remove the friction from the act. That's the reason that the hyper-enabled officers are becoming a thing, and the military-industrial complex loves them some AI because of that, because it makes it harder for us to defeat them in a variety of ways, not just the human element, but also just the practical shit.
Yeah. Do you think though? I agree with what you said, but there's like a proviso that comes to mind.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, it's a double-edged sword. Don't you think there might be a possibility that we could also use AI against them, right? Or do you think that's not really an option? Do you think that's not viable?
I'm inviting you to list any way that you think we could use it against them.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
and I
spend more time thinking about the MIC than I do about AI, and I'm not like an AI expert. I would imagine that when the military industrial complex comes up with more ways to oppress people with AI, that the cat and mouse kind of thing, the same way that there's black hat hackers and white hat hackers, there would be some sort of resistance that could use AI to undermine the MIC's efforts or use it to counter them in some way, you know, with software or with technology or something.
Maybe.
They would have to come up with something. Yeah. I can't come up with a specific example off the top of my head, though, so maybe I failed that test.
Well, you know, and we can always do a part 2, because, you know, your time is limited today, partially because for I was a little late today. I fucking did some hill climbers out there in the wilderness, at least, you know, as close as I can get to the wilderness in Spokane. But, like, I fucking did some hill climbers, and the soil was, like, it did, there was a lot of rain lately, and then the rain dried up. And so that dries up the top layer of soil and makes it real sandy and rocky. And so, like, I jumped down off a tree and skidded and slammed my elbow into the ground. So I've got the hashtag war wound for you here. And I was late, and it's my fault that this is starting late. But he's only got like an hour for this. We'll do a part 2. We'll do more of this. We'll hash this out and figure this out. But, like, generally speaking, the thing that I would say is AI is limited in its efficaciousness by the hardware. It's hardware limited potential, right? So if we wanted to maybe say that the state could be stopped by competitive anarchist AI, like cypherpunks, right? You know, we've got the anarchist intelligence, or whatever the thing would be, like, just finding a nice sci-fi name to call it. So let's say that was potentially a thing that people tried. I don't see them being able to compete on a hardware level with the military and intelligence industrial complex, their massive server farms, their cooling centers, their quantum computing that they're building. Like, I think if it's a one-to-one sort of like fight comparison between the AI capability of the common person and the military and intelligence industrial complex, we are fucking hoes. They whip out that magic deck, we might as well get up from the table.
I agree with you there, actually. I would agree, but there's like a guerrilla aspect that we could do. Rather than go toe-to-toe and line up on the battlefield or the proverbial AI battlefield on a one-to-one thing, there would have to be some sort of subversive guerrilla fly-by-night, you know what I mean? Like the way that America won every battle in Vietnam, but still lost the war, you know what I mean? Like, that would be kind of how we would have to go about it, where you would try to evade rather than, you know, square up, try to subvert, try to undermine, try to infect, try to trip up.
And by the way,
MIC, right?
For the purposes of this discussion, we are speaking strictly science fiction. We are writing a novel right now that y'all can listen to. In this video, we are not being serious and do not condone any illegal activities. This is a giant joke. Ha 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 ha. So, for legal reasons, that's a joke. But yeah, so continue.
Okay. No, I think I made my point, but I basically agree with you what you said about the one-to-one thing. I feel like there would have to be a different way, a more subversive way to exploit AI for the benefit of our side. You know, like the rebels in Star Wars stealing the plans for the Death Star or whatever, you know?
Yeah. So my general, if devil's advocate.
Okay.
If I were to say that there was a way to do anything against the state in this regard, a hypothetical fictional state, let's just call it, you know, China-Russia-stan, you know.
I like it.
Let's just say China, because, you know, that way I won't be Smith-acted. Fucking China-Russia-stan has, for instance, shot spotters. And shot spotters are like surveillance technology disguised as gunshot detection. They say, oh, we're going to be fucking ballistic acoustic detection devices. We're going to hear that pop from across the city and be able to triangulate where it goes, right? And that will give us like the place, and we can just go immediately dispatch officers to that location. In theory, But in practice, it's just used to listen in on people's conversations because they're sensitive enough that they can hear your conversation indoors.
Yeah.
Knowing what those look like is half the battle. And if somebody wanted to, for America's government, if they wanted to, for a patriotic reason that does not at all like corrupt the influence of the American government because yeehaw, I'm a patriot. If they wanted to, they could recognize what those look like and take them down in China-Russia stan. Nowhere in America, though. Don't take down any American shot spotters. But if they wanted to, then they could do that. And AI could be used to quickly identify shot spotters and their physical appearance and disable them in some ways. So maybe something like that. But that's the only kind of thing. And then eventually they would just get used to it and start building defense systems like iron domes for this shit. Like setting up counter drone little things like... And then like we're dealing with very fast responses, and all they would have to do is say that these terrorists look, we didn't make this video, it's a totally real video. These terrorists have corrupted our society and are taking down the hardware that keeps you safe. Do you hate black people? Oh, sorry, do you hate criminals? These things are stopping those criminals. So they, fucking the propaganda will be thick, you know.
I got a question for you though. Something that came up. So you asked me a really good question when you asked me how like could I give an example of how to instantiate, how to actually specifically use AI against a China-Russia stan MIC.
Specifically,
and I felt like my answer might have been a bit lacking. It was kind of vague. So I got a question for you though. Let's say that we agree. Let's say that we all agree on our side that AI is just bad and we want to stop it. We want to eliminate it or go as far as we can in that direction of elimination. Like, how would we be able to keep it out of the hands of the MIC? How would we be able to eliminate it from society or at least suppress it as much as possible? Can you push it back in the Pandora's box? Or do you think the Pandora's box analogy doesn't apply here? Do you think it would just be a matter of legislation or something like that? What do you feel?
Fuck legislation. Legislation would just be a way for them to say, yeah, you know what? The official AIs are the only ones that are acceptable. That's that's down the road to like just isolating the power. No, so, okay, the first step is cultural. Politics is downstream from culture, as is anti-politics. So, for instance, I like Jester. I like her art. Her art is great. People should go support Jester's art. If you want customs, if you want a commission, go get one. She does great personas. She can do your like cartoon aesthetic. She can also do a variety of others. I also know a variety of other artists that I can do like promote, and maybe I'll do a stream where I just highlight them in anarchist spaces. And those artists like do great shit as well. Like, and what you do is you just promote those, and if you see somebody posting AI anything, even if it's just a meme, even if it's just like, you know, an image or whatever, you shame the fuck out of them. And like when you create this culture where it's considered gross to engage in the field, it will create this culture where not only is it like that on the ground, right? Not only is this the way everybody sort of believes, because you can make this argument from a right, left, fucking bottom, top perspective, whatever you want. There's so many arguments against AI. And so all you got to do is convince that culture. Once you've got that culture, you've got people who are unwilling to tolerate a statist AI society. And when they realize that it's even a threat, you know, on a more innocent level, like, haha, I made a funny video where Biden admitted to pooping his pants. You know, like, fucking, this shit is hilarious. Maybe, you know, like, if even they are shamed because they use that instead of, for instance, hiring a voice actor, you know, that would be a beneficial thing for society. Additionally, if, like, at the same time, like, it's not just, you know, hey, you're bad, but also, like, hey, this person's great. You could like tag an artist in the mentions and say, instead of getting AI art, support this person. That's like, it would be not only a cheeky way to support artists and get more like indie artists like off the ground and visible,
Yeah.
but it would also be a way to directly hit back against the people who literally steal their work. I mean, okay, I should say, I don't believe in intellectual property. I'm using steal in the colloquial sense because I don't think it's theft, but I can understand the reason for using the word steal because it's just taking it and using it to power an automated system that rips off their style but does not give them credit. You know?
Do you think there's like a plagiaristic aspect there as well? Because I think there might be. Because I think plagiarism is different than just IP theft, right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah. But you would have to pass it off as your own. And like that's the thing. Most people aren't going to say this is AI generated. And go.
Yeah. So actually, I kind of like your answer. There was two things that came to mind, which is first, I don't think I think that your mention of saying use culture to marginalize or shun the AI stuff. I do think that would actually be a good tactic, even though it wouldn't necessarily eliminate AI. I don't think that AI can be put back in the Pandora's box, but I do believe that there's a viable path there culturally, right, to stigmatize it and make the argument, convince people that it's a bad thing to use, just like, like heroin or becoming a crackhead or whatever. Like crack exists, but most people know better than to do it, and it is stigmatized, right? We could do the same thing here. I think that would go a long way. And then what AI's challenge would be at that point, it seems like it already kind of is, where you want, like, the AI that would succeed would be the AI that convinces humans that it's not really AI, like the AI that successfully hides behind a mask of humanity, like trying to convince you that it's not the AI, that it's actually a human that did it. That's going to be the next layer in the battle between the humans and the AI, I guess.
Right? Absolutely. And so here's the thing. I want to emphasize something real quick, because I don't want to, fucking hashtag Salem witch trials this. I don't want to be like, you used AI, you're forever a bad person, I'm going to treat you like shit. But
you AI user.
Yeah. But I do firmly believe that it's it can only be an affront to freedom, liberty. I see it as one of those things. I used to be a statist, and it took me a long while to realize all the things that were connected to my shit that was like fundamentally loathsome to my other ideologies. And if these people could just be like encouraged into a better culture, I think that would help greatly, because it's the same as statism. You don't just say, you're bad, fuck you. You say, you're bad at doing this particular thing, and here's how you could improve.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear just, you're bad, fuck you. And while I do that with some people, it's only after they've gone past a certain limit. Or if they don't like saxophone, which not liking saxophone makes somebody genetically defective. But can you think of a single saxophone song that isn't at least made better by the saxophone?
No, I'd have to think long and hard about that, but nothing pops up in my head immediately.
You're like, that song has saxophone in it. That sucks. Disliking sax is just it's a hard line for anyway. So I think we've come to a relatively similar place here. I'm not trying to just destroy anybody who's ever AI'd. And if I was, I would be a massive piece of shit hypocrite, because I used to use AI assistants all the fucking time. I used to
Really?
Yeah.
What were you using it for?
Just speech to text.
Oh.
Yeah. Which is ironic.
That's not so bad.
Well, I don't like it because it fucked off my mom.
Yeah.
But the general vibe, I stopped using it because I was like, I hate AI. I see all these connections to all this shit that it's doing. I keep saying that people shouldn't use it. I keep being publicly why am I still using this? Does that make me a piece of shit? Should I, like, shit or get off the pot in this particular thing? Like, maybe I should just not use it anymore. And so just
Yeah.
hard line, cut it off. No more speech to text.
I'm kind of torn on it. When we first started talking about AI, I told you that I felt like overall the potential benefits outweigh the negatives. And after we just spoke about it for a while, I recognize the criticisms and the dangers that you see. I also am sympathetic to Jester's story, and I've heard of other artists express similar things about how AI has frustrated their careers or their work and caused them, financial issues and loss of customers or potential customers, that kind of thing. So I'm definitely sympathetic there, but I don't feel like I'm on the whole, like, AI is always going to be bad. I think there's like a double-edged sword thing again, to maybe hopefully not overuse that reference.
That's fine.
But I feel like there's got to be some positives in there. I've seen positive potential that AI has, although I think my eyes are a bit more open now after we spoke about more of the dangers that are associated with it. So I can respect that.
Well, and so, okay, just olive branch here. AI has been somewhat effective at, like, analyzing medical information and coming up with treatments. AI has been here's the thing. There's one piece of AI tech that in its current application I really fucking like. And that piece of AI tech is a laser on a big like fucking like harvesting combine thing, but they replaced the thing with like lasers. And those lasers are part of an array that are hooked up to image recognition, and it recognizes growing weeds and burns them off. And that yeah. And that means you don't have to use pesticides. I hate pesticides. Great. Awesome. Use that AI like for that purpose as much as you fucking want. But
that is a cool application.
It could also be used to laser people in the same way. So it's like, Yeah.
I heard that. Did you read this headline or read this story, man? I saw a headline. I didn't actually read the story, but it was something along the lines of AI helps analyze medical X-rays to find like tumors or something like that. So that might be a good application.
Yeah, if it's
maybe
if it's something like that and it's like helping people not die, I don't fucking give a shit. Like, it's just a matter of like, I don't like the AI when it's doing what it does the majority of the time. Like, if, for instance, you use AI to build like a structure that looks like absolute dog shit, but it's like the most structurally stable structure, and you're using it to prevent like a bridge from collapsing, excellent. Or if you use it to preserve plastic in your fucking plastic off, go for it, or whatever, the FGC9, I don't care. I don't know what the latest 3D printed gun is, but go for it. If you want a 3D printed gun in Russia-China stan, then go, but don't use it to destabilize America. We would never.
No.
Yeah. But like, so I guess like my primary issue is not that like AI will and is always a bad thing. My issue is that the vast majority of use cases for it are useful for evil and little else.
It may seem that way right now. Hopefully we could stigmatize and marginalize the evil use cases and find a way to promote or boost the positive use cases, which I think which is definitely being underutilized, right? It does feel like the evil aspect is a little overrepresented right now, if anything, right?
Yeah.
Speaking, oh, sorry, go ahead.
You have what?
I was going to say real quick, though, my Midjourney story is actually a total failure. I don't have any artistic ability whatsoever, but I was interested for a little while in selling NFTs, not buying them. I subscribed to Midjourney, and I spent like a month using Midjourney for hours every day, trying really hard to get it to produce a viable series of images that I could monetize and sell as NFTs. But I felt like it never got to where where I needed it to be to make like money out of it or use it viably. It got like Midjourney got like maybe 80 or 90% of where I needed it to go, but it just couldn't cross that finish line. And I never managed to do like an NFT that I thought was satisfying for myself. So I ended up being disappointed and I canceled the goddamn subscription. So I think there might be some solace there, or what's the word? There might still be some, like I think right now at least, and probably for a long time, there's going to be a lot of things that the human artists can do that the AI cannot do. So I think that someone like Jester or another artist would still be able to take the artwork to a level beyond what AI is capable of. And even though if AI is still like screwing up, their work, there's got to be some way that they can go in that direction that AI cannot go, or go to a certain altitude that AI cannot reach. You know what I mean? Because I felt like AI was not reaching it for me when I was trying to use it.
Yeah, I would say build a better mousetrap, but Jester likes rodents, so I don't think Jester wants to do it. All right, so like we got limited time, decidedly, but all right.
I could do another 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
Let's just quickly, and maybe this will open up the can of worms that we need to have a pas deux about, but like,
yeah,
Malay. Make the best case you can for Malay.
Oh man, I'm not as much of a Malay fan as you may. I do like the guy overall. I have a positive view of him, but I think some people on the internet thought I was a real Malay simp just because I was posting a lot of memes. A little bit of background, man. I've got some family that came from Argentina. They immigrated here back in the 60s before I was born, but I've heard a lot about the old country and blah, blah, blah. They're not fans of Peronism. And the country was the context of Argentina was so it was so locked in this poverty cycle for decades and decades. So Malay was a legit breath of fresh air there politically. And the things that he's been doing economically, I like when I hear that he's firing all these unnecessary government officials and closing all these government ministries, I can't help but feel happy about that. When he did that silly, that, a lot of people called it cringe, and I liked it though, that AnCap costume that he did, that shit was so funny. And I feel like he's just enough of a wild card that the global political sideshow needs to have in there right now. I didn't know much about the whole Israel thing. I'm willing to hear your critical takes on him. I was more focused on what he was trying to do domestically in Argentina in an economic sense. I don't like his anti-abortion stance. I don't like his anti-LGBT stance. I don't like his cultural conservatism. That's for sure. If he's going to be some sort of Israel stand that wants to see a bunch of Palestinians massacred, well, I wouldn't like that either. I could just tell you that right off the bat. Right. I don't think anyone's perfect. But I'm excited about what he's going to do economically for Argentina. He's not in control of. He's not the president of Israel. He's the president of Argentina. So that's where he's going to be able to do what he has to do.
All right. So, just before anybody says anything, in chat, comments, whatever. My goal today is not to grill Aaron. Somebody, I don't remember who, but they said, is there going to be a debate? And I was like, this is just going to be, I want a conversation. I want to talk to him.
Sure.
So the first thing, you say he's not president of Israel, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things that he is doing, he's positioning himself aligned with the president of America. His team met with Biden, met with Janet Yellen, met with all of these people in America that are part of America's domestic and foreign policies, right? And they came to the general conclusion that they were on the same mission as each other. And That's alarming. And additionally alarming is that he purchased 24 jets from Lockheed Martin, fueling the
Mm.
American military-industrial complex. He
I didn't know that, but
yeah
that is a bummer. But I wasn't even aware. Yeah.
yeah
Yeah.
he also gave 2 helicopters to Ukraine as a
Mm.
symbolic gesture of support for Ukraine, while having like a
Yeah.
summit designed to increase support for Ukraine. He
Uh,
he says he's going to move the embassy of Argentina into Jerusalem, therefore officially
um,
siding the Argentinian government with the Israeli government. Um,
yeah.
he says he's going to do all of that while trying to join NATO, which is 2% a year, and it's also a shit ton of layers of additional bureaucracy. And also, of
Yeah.
course, anybody who knows me knows I really fucking hate NATO for the same reason I really fucking hate the government of Ukraine, because they're
Yeah.
infested with, from their root, a bunch of fucking Nazis and sympathizers. So it's like, I hate
Yeah.
NATO. So there's a reason that the U.S. and Ukraine were the most reliable no votes on the Russian proposition to condemn Nazism. It's because if they did that, they'd have to go back
Mm.
through their history and be like, man, here's where we fucked up, and also here and here and here and here and here, and just
Yeah.
so many Nazis fucking, and some of
Uh,
those Nazis escaped to Argentina, Chile, a lot of
Yep.
fucking South American countries through Reinhard Galen's rat lines from the Galen org, which
Yeah.
was a CIA op. And so they were like, we don't like Russia. Here, spy on
Mm.
Russia for us, and we'll let you go, Nazis. And just make sure that you don't, do anything illegal in the process. Wink, wink, nod, nod. And then they just rat-lined a bunch of Nazis out of Germany, helped them escape, and get power elsewhere. This was
Yeah.
real early on. It was around the same time that NATO and the Bundeswehr were like, Bundeswehr was literally like the Wehrmacht, if I recall correctly, repackaged, but in NATO. And they were like, oh, you
Mm.
know what? We really don't like, and that's Russian. It's hard for me to
Yeah.
put on a German accent after I talked about whatever. I'm not going to do the accent. We really don't like, fucking Hitler. Hitler was a bad guy. We were along for the ride. We're sorry. And then
Yeah.
and then they just, so when I see this, I
Mm.
see the infiltration of Nazis and right-wingism, neoliberal policies, infiltrating, for instance, places like Chile with Colonia Dignidad. And
Mm.
he literally said, Milei said, he liked the turnaround after Allende. That means he endorses the miracle of Chile, the Augusto Pinochet regime.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And all of that combined with the
Um,
fact that he named his dogs after the Chicago school economists who were responsible for the interference in Latin America and the support
mm.
of the coup, it's like you start to recognize some cultural patterns. And with all of that
Ah,
being said, when he's trying to
yeah.
join the West after endorsing Western policy, falling in line with the Biden administration and the American
Mm.
Federal Reserve System, it's like, if you want to get rid of the Argentinian central bank, fine,
Mm.
but you're also increasing tariffs on your own people now. That's what he's doing. He's increasing tariffs on middle and
Well,
low income earners.
so let me bump in on that. Now, first off, I'll say I didn't understand. I wasn't aware of the depths to where he was making overtures towards NATO, Ukraine. I didn't know he was doing all that stuff with the military hardware. I definitely agree with you on all those points that that's bad. I'm not a fan of NATO either.
Yeah.
Um,
Fuck
when it
NATO.
comes to the domestic policies that he has with Argentina, I do like the idea of him abolishing the central bank, because especially with Argentina, that central bank is very irresponsible with its monetary policy. If he wants to dollarize, and I'm not a huge fan of the U.S. dollar, but I would say that would be a step up from the Argentinian peso, right? But when it came to the subsidies thing, or the tariffs rather, it wasn't like a tariff issue. What was going on was Argentina had a very generous welfare subsidy program for low-income earners, which right now is like a huge portion of the populace there, where they were subsidizing fuel or food and all these other items. And a lot of South American countries do that. They subsidize fuel at the pump, and the retail price is, abnormally low. And he's putting an end to that. He's basically just cutting all those welfare programs, which a lot of people were screaming hurts the poor. Now, in Spanish, the word tariff, it's like a mistranslation. The word tariff is like the word subsidy. So there was a bit of a lost in translation thing there. But it is true that he is basically removing some financial support for lower income individuals. That was kind of what he was doing.
So here's the problem I have with that. If you want to make the case that the lower and middle income people have it too easy, and that they shouldn't be getting like fucking money from the government, if Peronism was so bad, then the economy was fucked. And these people getting a small amount of money that was stolen from them by the government anyway, back from it, after the government fucked them over for like, decades? Like, I don't see too much of a problem with that. Like, I don't look at a mom on Wick or, a family on EBT, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? Fuck them poors. I don't think that way because I'm not a piece of shit, and I'm sure you're not either, but he seems like that.
Cutting welfare benefits, like government benefits to low-income individuals, is not at the top of my AnCap priority list, right? I focus on the big cheese, like the MIC and the bailouts for big banks and the subsidies for oil companies. Those are the things that I would prioritize on my list of shit to get rid of, obviously.
And in that vein, 2% to NATO is way bigger than anything that like the poor people have like seen fucking decreases from. And it's also like it's a drop in the bucket because like he also wants to put facial recognition cameras everywhere. That was in his platform. He wants Yeah. Oh, God. And he literally wants to scan people's faces at protests so that he can find them and deny them government benefits if they decide to rise up against the government. He wants to make it easier to lock people up in the prisons. He reduced restrictions on police use of guns, making it easier for them to shoot the common person. He did all this while in his platform saying that he would mandate prison labor for profit, meaning that if you are a criminal, you would have to like make the government money, which means that if the government wants to prosecute victimless crimes or whatever, they'll just lock people up as part of a prison industrial complex. And for anybody who thinks that he's, he's an AnCap, he's going to end victimless crimes. The first thing he did getting in was hiring Patricia Bullrich, a woman he criticized hugely during his campaign because she's a fucking statist bitch. And she fucking gets hired by him on day like 5, I think it was. Maybe
I'm not aware of who that is. What's her history? What does she do?
She's a drug warrior.
Oh, really?
And the first day she gets in office, she posts this meme edit video of her being like, I crushed the cartels already, of her like throwing bricks of bullshit into like fires and being like, and I'll crush them again. I'm gonna make the cartels afraid. And it's like, we see it. We see that he's like, well, I don't like victimless crimes. I'm a libertarian. I'm Viva fucking Kareem in the comments has a way of putting that. He says Viva Libertard Car Show because it's like a fucking car salesman.
Instead of Viva Libertad Carajo or whatever, Viva la Libertad Carajo.
Yeah, and
that's funny.
Yeah, and so. It's like that because it's like a Mott and Bailey. It's like, oh yeah, I'm so anarchist. I'm so libertarian. I wear the AnCap costume, and then the first thing he does is hire a drug czar, create a facial recognition super state, jack up inflation to 25.5% higher than it was by tanking the value of the peso, and then like
he devalued.
Yeah. And
Wow.
and so it's like people are like, "Oh, he reduced inflation 12%." And it's like, yeah, if you look at that in the vacuum between like January to now, mid-January to now, but like if you look at it before then, it was like jacked up 25.5, and now it's basically on the same course it would have been. So he didn't control inflation at all. He just
regarding the inflation, I want to touch on that in a second. But first, what I want to say is coming into this, when we were arranging this discussion, I was kind of getting the sense that you might have some info about Malay that I wasn't aware of, and it sounds like you do. And that information is disappointing, frankly. So, if Malay ends up being the next, Pinochet, and becomes this drug warrior, culture warrior, police state kind of guy who's just like, I mean, that would be extremely disappointing. If he's hiring drug czars, that totally sucks. I was more excited about him when he was still running for president and doing the AnCap crap like you were talking about, and with the costumes and stuff. So if he does the Mott and Bailey, then I would definitely have to give him a thumbs down for that. What I'm gonna do is after we're done talking on this video debate, I'm gonna look more deeply into that stuff that you said. Not because I don't believe you, but because I want to learn more about it. So I probably got to do some reading. But touching on the inflation thing specifically, so when you look at when you put the numbers on a graph, he made inflation like shoot up, at least temporarily. You know why? Because one of the things they do in South America and a lot of these other countries with all this planned economic shit, they'll have an informal exchange rate, right? Like the black market exchange rate. Then they got a formal exchange rate that is way different than the black market exchange rate. But another thing they do, which also Venezuela does, is they have, or they at least had, like 9 different exchange rates. So if you're trading food, you get this exchange rate. If you're
you muted? Hey, real quick. You touch your mic or something? Like, I don't know. Maybe, there we go.
Oh, I hit the mute button. Sorry, man.
Not a problem.
Thank you for it. I accidentally hit the mute button right there. So he had like all these different exchange rates. There were, or Argentina did. There was an exchange rate for food. There was an exchange rate for machine parts. There was an exchange rate for, automobiles and blah, blah, blah.
Pegged.
And there was all these different stupid exchange rates depending on what you want to buy. And you had to get government permission to buy it. So what he did is he collapsed all those and he just let it more closely reflect the informal rate, which everyone was using on the street anyway. So then when the bankers get together and chart the inflation, obviously the moves that he made to bring it more in line with the informal rate caused on paper a huge jump in inflation.
Sure.
But we're seeing it subside. We should be seeing the inflation subside going forward in through the rest of the year.
Yeah, well, my contention there is if it subsides, but it still is on that general upward curve, then he's not making the inflation any better. He's just not making it dramatically worse, except the worse that it was made, temporarily before the economy normalized. So, like, that's my. I hear your kids in the background. We could wrap soon.
Yeah,
like,
the kids trying to be.
It's totally fine. But like, generally, so we should do maybe more of these, like hash out the issues. But like, look. I'm just an asshole online. Anybody who wants to fucking like disprove anything I say, do it, please. I don't like to waste time being wrong, So if like I'm not perfect. I'm not bringing my wisdom down from on high, being like, here's the fucking truth. I could be full of shit. So that's my. Yeah. We'll wrap soon. So
sorry, he was knocking on the door.
Totally fine.
Well, it's cool. It's cool that you're being like modest about it and you're open to hearing, contrasting ideas. I would definitely say though that you're more informed than most, and I do like a lot of the things that you say. I mean, I feel like you taught me a few things today. I hope I gave you a few pieces of info that maybe you didn't know. But it seems like there's a big disappointment factor there with Malay. and I'm willing to cope to that. I'm willing to admit that, especially with his foreign policy stuff and his culture warrior stuff. That's totally not my jam. If those are the things that he's indeed doing, I want to remain like at least hopeful that he can do something positive economically for the country, because if he ends up just crashing and burning completely and our fringe little, the fringe AnCap far right libertarian thing gets a bunch of egg on its face, I would just be sad that happened. I would be sad to have been, like bamboozled by the guy, I guess. But I'm not gonna like, I don't want to be in denial if he ends up bamboozling us, and I'll be like, no, and so I'll take that L if that happens. But I really hope it doesn't. I want to be at least optimistic a little bit. But it is true, like when he started coming out with the culture war crap right after he got elected, like with the abortion stuff and other things, and I was like, oh, come on, man, why are you doing that? Why don't you focus on the economic stuff, which is what the people wanted from you anyway, So
Yeah.
kind of a bummer.
Well, and just a brief note. Like, we got Rose in the chat saying, it's true, I wanted to like Malay, but Jeremy insists on ruining everything. Yeah. And Hody is in the chat. He appreciated my comment. Hody Jones is great people. Recommend him, like, in what he does quite a bit. But like he appreciated my joke about criminals. We hate criminals, but actually they're racists. Rose says that my thing, like, I am a conspiracy theorist. I am a conspiracy theorist cunt. I am massively just, if I see something that even vaguely connects to something, my brain will be automatically like, get the corkboard, put the fucking thumbtack. We gotta wire this up. So like, that's my fucking brain immediately goes there when I see him adoring Trump, when I see him like glad-handing and hugging Trump nearly tearfully behind CPAC stage doors.
Yeah, that was totally cringe, man.
Yeah.
That was lame.
And Vivek Ramaswamy and all these just CPAC. CPAC is Republicans. They're not libertarians or anarchists.
Yeah.
And like, when I saw this, I was just like, this confirms everything that I've been saying, because he did that. He's like, oh yeah, the religious establishment and whatever, they serve the state. They're getting too woke. And then he went off and glad-handed the Pope, and fucking like went to Israel and like fucking cried at the wall and just a variety of other things. And fucking, I think it just really puts a pin in it for me that people are willing to normally. I'm just got spittle. I just went for a run. Sorry, audience. People are sort of like, they love that WEF speech, the World Economic Forum speech, WEF thing. They love that, right? But they ignore the last part of it where he says, you are the real protagonists of this story, and Argentina is your staunch and unconditional ally. That was right at the end. He just says that, and nobody cares. Like, oh man, it's so transparent.
Yeah. What a bait and switch. I'm starting to get the notion that these politicians are bait and switching us, man.
Yeah, politicians are liars, man. I'm new to... Yeah. The first politician lie that I heard, it was like last month. It was awful. It was like I got stabbed, Anyway, but yeah, like... and I'm sure, like, I've got a shit ton to learn. There should be more streams of this variety. There's gonna be like a hashtag Real Libertarians stream about paleo problems coming up also, where we'll be discussing more about the paleo strategy and Rothbard's shit like that. But I thought these two issues would be fun to sort of like dive into and like get impressions on. Yeah. And I think there's been a good info exchange. I think it's been like amicable, probably. Yeah. So
I think so too.
Yeah. So I guess then I've said enough. You got a book, obviously. Your kids are like beating the door down.
Yeah.
So
real life is calling. They barely give me an hour.
Yeah. Right. Well. Closing statements, you can say, take as long as you want, whatever you want here. And you can also plug your stuff. Like, where can people find you? What do you do online?
Sure. Okay. Well, then, yeah. Closing statements, man. I liked your takes on AI. The stories about the artists suffering at the hands of AI is very unfortunate. I'm going to remain optimistic that there's going to be certain things we could harness AI to use to the betterment of humanity, like the X-ray medical detection thing, and maybe find a way to socially stigmatize the bad uses of AI. Right. Uh, but I'm not convinced that AI is an overall like I don't think the negative right now really outweighs the potential for the positive at the moment, even if it's mostly used in a negative way at the moment, right? Malay, it's kind of an eye opener. The things that you said, I did see some disappointing foreign policy stuff from him, and I didn't know that it went as far as what you described. But I believe what you told me about him. So I'm gonna do a little bit of digging into that and see just what else he's been doing that gives me reasons to feel disillusioned by him. I'm hoping that he can do something positive to the Argentinian economy. But if he ends up just being another Pinochet, I would not mind. Swearing him off and saying that I was fooled. So hopefully he can turn his shit around. But if he just ends up, sucking up to all these elites and doing the whole NATO crap, then that's going to be a huge disappointment. And I think that the left on the social media world will really rub it in our faces if it ends up happening that way. So I mean, I hope it doesn't, but I won't deny it if it happens. You know what I mean? Yeah. If anyone wants to see any of my stuff, I've got a YouTube channel called The Libertarian, and that's LIBERTAARON, like my first name with Libertarian, all mixed up there. And then you can see me on Twitter, _Libertarian. I'll have to start using that Twitter account again soon. So I haven't made videos on there in a little while because my kids have been taking up so much of my time. But I enjoy doing these video chats, and I hope we get to do more of them soon. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Happy to have you back on. And whether or not like anybody here like agrees or disagrees with anything he says, I think that the one goal, as always, that the overriding theme is we're trying to drive at corruption. We're trying to, reduce the power of the apparatus that wants to chain us. And I think that, like, no matter what disagreements we had today might proceed to have, the goal should primarily and always be civil conversation, because in the end, we're not the enemy of each other. Like, we got Rose joking and Chad saying there wasn't nearly enough yelling. We came here for the blood sports.
Yeah. F you, man.
Yeah. Fucking, yeah. I didn't say the word cunt enough. I need to, like, up that to make it, like, the 10 quota. Yeah. But, like, the ultimate goal, we need to find ways to have civil conversations like this. If you're an ANCOM out there and you want to have civil conversations like this, if you're like an transhumanist and you have a stronger case for AI or whatever, I'm down to talk. I want these conversations, and I want them to be civil and reasonable. That's what I want. Because for a long time, I've been saying the elites are looking down from their ivory towers, watching us follow their programs and fight each other for their fucking entertainment. And that only increases their power. As long as we spend our energy pointing our barrels at each other, we can never point them upward. And that's the culture we have to create, a culture of solidarity on the ground and smashing the fucking state.
Hell yeah. Fuck yeah.
All right. We be done.